Danny, thank you very much first and foremost for coming on to the Apex Trades podcast. Obviously we're here to discuss Foxify, maybe a little bit of MDB here and there, smattered in between, but predominantly it's going to be about Foxify. And so I think firstly it's massive congratulations. I remember, maybe not so long ago, 2 months, maybe slightly even more, just when you first kind of showed the kind of MDB team, and to see how far it's come and the exposure it's got in such a short time is phenomenal. And obviously, you must take pride in that, because it's not just you, actually, it's a team effort that's able to put that together. So big congratulations, I've got to say. But I guess for those that might not know you, might not know MDB, might not know Foxify, do you want to just give a very, very brief kind of overview of a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So Danny, I am Doc, so Danny Winn. I suppose me and my background, I've got just over a year in Web3. Before that, I've been about a bit. I worked in the corporate space for about 10 years. Worked for DHL, a couple of large companies. I worked for DHL Supply Chain. I worked for Schneider Electric, sort of 26 billion turnover energy and sustainability business around their electric vehicle charging market across business across a few markets. Then I moved into the startup space, sort of chief revenue officer of a SaaS business, took that from a few people up to 120 million valuation, and I'm always attracted to things that have, it's really cheesy, I know, but I'm really passionate about things that I see that can change the world as we know it, whether it's Hyperloop or driverless cars and drones and things like blockchain and additive manufacturing, energy sustainability, the things that just really excite me. So I love change, and the things that can create the biggest change in the world as we know it really excite me. So I launched a project, MDB, a week before Terra Luna. So whilst I'm passionate about certain things, I'm obviously not so great at timing. That we're often being called the bear market assassin by people, because we work very hard. We're not quitters. We never make excuses. Never. We'll try not to waste time thinking about things that we can't control. And we did very well in the bear market, sort of 8x as a project. Probably still sitting at sort of around 6x today, and obviously a lot of future potential as well. So Foxify is it's our $1 billion business play. We're going big. We've got very, 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 very ambitious goals. I was just sharing with Andrew that our social engagement is already exceeding that of the 5 largest decentralized trading platforms that are already established, and we're 2 months from launch. So our goal is to get 200 million eyes on the brand, and have a very aggressive strategy and change the game as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, from what I know of you and kind of how you approached MDB, it seems like it'll happen. A lot of the kind of I've probably learned more from you in just being around the kind of the space than I have in any of the jobs that I've ever done. And I'm an ops director myself, so I've got kind of managerial experience. But to your level, you have a distinct kind of style that you let people get on with stuff, but you still got the vision as well. And it's not. I don't think that's an easy thing. That it either comes naturally or it doesn't. I don't think that's something you have to kind of train to. So you definitely got. You've definitely got that about you, which is great. So,
thank you.
Obviously, MDB and now Foxify, 2 really completely different projects. And so, what do you think you've learned from MDB and what you've done that's allowed you to kind of move into this space? And I guess another thing I was kind of thinking is, with the way the markets operate, and this might be kind of a 2-pronged question, but the way markets generally are garnered towards is with the likes of a bear market. Usually, DeFi projects are the first to kind of take the beating from that. Whereas when you think of Foxify, and I don't know if this was playing on your mind when you were thinking about this, but it's almost like a bulletproof vest for trading platforms, because they can win in both. Was that a thought when you were thinking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's 2 things that are really important when you think about any idea or any business, right? I think I've had some funny business ideas pitched to me sometimes, and if you don't understand the problem you're solving and you don't understand the economics, then you're hoping to get lucky, quite frankly. And if you look at the problem that you're trying to solve, the first question is there a market, right? I think around one metric I've seen is around $11 trillion traded in crypto during the bear market, right? So during 2022, so that would more than quadruple most likely, during a bull market. But is there a market? Absolutely, there's a huge market. Even though it's a bear market, it is a huge market. And then are you solving a problem? And if you survey traders, which we've done, and you get feedback, there's traders are all interested in very similar things. They actually, even above almost anything, user experience and UI is super important for a trader. They are also interested in fees, and they're interested in various other things as well. But the thing that stands out the most is fear of insolvency of the platform they're using. That's the number one concern. Doesn't matter whether you're a big trader, institutional, small. Everybody's got the same concern, and so number one, are we solving a problem? So Foxify takes that concern away, and then number two is around the economics, and I go back to what was number two on my list. If you think about user experience quite often for many traders even lists higher than fees, right? And fees are important at volume, and it's important institutional and structurally as well within markets, but in terms of individual traders and retail traders, user experience is really big. And when you look at the amount of conversion from CeFi into DeFi trading platforms, it's ridiculously small. If you look at current market leaders, DYDX, I suppose how decentralized is questionable, but people have different views. But if you look at, say, GMX is another example, sometimes doing $2 million a day in fees, which sounds insane, right? It sounds like they've made it and that's it, the market is done. When in truth, if you just transferred 0.1% of centralized exchange volume into a decentralized environment where you don't have custody of funds and risk, then there's $5 million worth of fees a day to be had. So I think when you step back and you look at the problem that you're solving, you look at the economics of the opportunity, it's huge. But you have to solve the problem, and you have to cater to the wants of your customer base, and that's why Foxify is heavily focused on non-custodial, 100% trust, decentralized, and then super easy user experience.
I noticed, and I don't know if this was intentional by ByBit, but specifically for our American friends, because there's some sort of ruling within the States which don't allow leverage trading, or very minimal amount of leverage trading, with geo restrictions and things like that, ByBit have now enforced, if it's not already happened, but they've enforced mandatory KYC. And so a lot of the American friends over there, they were using VPNs and stuff like that in order to be able to mask their location. But I found it was very interesting because ByBit brought out Apex Pro maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and they've been kind of steadily building decentralized trading platform, gasless chain, that kind of stuff. And now they've said, okay, we are going fully KYC, therefore it probably lost. And I know this as an affiliate of ByBit, it's really kind of dampened the mood around whether, if specifically the largest target audience being probably the States, that they've lost a lot of that. But I don't know if it was a crude move by them because of some of the huge benefits of going decentralized in this, I don't want to say anonymous, but the ability to be able to trade without, giving your birth certificate and your passport and everything else that comes with it. Do you think there's going to be more? Because you're right, GMX, DYDX, and Apex Pro as an example are probably three of the ones that spring to mind to me, and obviously coming up with Foxify. Do you think there's going to be more of a transition generally from centralized trading to decentralized trading? And if so, what would you say is the main reasons behind that?
I think there's a huge opportunity there. I think naturally for a number of different reasons, and actually, when I listed out sort of our two main focuses, not having a KYC wasn't one of those. I suppose the fundamental difference between, say, a platform like Foxify is that we're we're not offering financial products.
Sure.
We don't sell financial products. We don't put a price on any financial products. We don't take any custody of funds, and there's a very clear difference. And even on the options, our platform doesn't set the rate. You know, it's a smart contract system that facilitates users to engage with each other, no different to say a pancake swap or a Uniswap. So it's different, obviously structurally, but I mean in terms of sort of the legal definition. So there's a massive fundamental difference there. So is there a shift away? I think it's interesting because the two things that I mentioned, which was concern around solvency and then user experience, those two things are actually interestingly, they're both the driver and also the inhibitor of volume moving from CeFi across to decentralized trading platforms, and so that's why we focus on those two things. Because I think whilst organizations have done a fantastic job so far of being very innovative in creating trading platforms where people don't have to worry about the solvency of the platform they're using, which is great. No, I don't think anybody as yet pre-Foxify has tackled the user experience question, certainly by as much as we're going to, and so in one fell swoop we're providing the solution and removing the barriers at the same time, and like I say, if you can just get 0.1% of the centralized trading market, then it's huge. There's it's much more mature on that side. So there's still a lot of development and innovation still to be done on decentralized trading, but the opportunity is definitely there. We just need to remove the barriers. I think what you have to do when it doesn't matter whatever you're trying to sell in any walk of life, anywhere around the world, you will always struggle when you forget what it was like speaking to somebody who doesn't know what you do and explaining it to them. And I think in DeFi we're really guilty of that. I think most people have long forgotten pulling their hair out over seed phrases, working out gas, bridging, what's a MetaMask, and people have long forgotten that once you're in DeFi, and it's a bit of an echo chamber, and it's that barrier is lost. I would have bought Bitcoin at $1 if it was much easier to do, right? But it was hard, and I was trying to learn about wallets, and in the end I just gave up and moved on, so that's why it's a huge focus for us, because you're not going to unlock the potential of the market unless you make it easy for people to come in.
You made a big commitment, which has been phenomenal, by the way, and I think it's probably one of the reasons, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons it's garnered a lot more kinds of eyes. But you made an intentional move to kind of get around the globe a little bit. You started in London, you then went to Dubai, and recently for the consensus you'd done testing Austin, Texas. What was was that an intentional focus and what was the rationale behind it? Was it to get more eyes on the platform? And I know obviously there's probably about investment and opportunities and things like that, but what's your experience been of those different different places that you've been so far? And I know the roadmap's going to continue, by the way.
No, and it is. Look, I think it's I think when you're doing what we're doing, it's really important that people understand the brand. I love our brand. I think we work with a couple of agencies, one specifically who sent us a proposal to rebrand us without us asking, unprompted, and we were, I said the Fox stays, right? If you ever mention that again, you can forget this relationship. We're very, we're very wedded to the brand. It's very aggressive. It's very intentional, and it has to be something that really connects with people when they see it. But we also want to reach people in all sorts of corners, and so getting out and seeing people, you meet liquidity providers, private investors, institutional investors, market makers, and you get to meet the ecosystem. So our diaries are full for the next couple of weeks. I'm off to Istanbul next week, and we're just going through that process where I had a call with somebody today from the one of the largest exchanges globally. We're talking to probably 3 or 4 of the top 10 exchanges globally, but that's all off the back of face-to-face meetings, and we've spoken to sort of $1 billion funds, and all of that comes from face to face, and so it's super important to build those relationships in that way, because certainly when you've got a complex technology, something like Foxify works or relies, it's successful relying on an ecosystem. It's not it's not a token, for instance.
It was funny. I was looking at there was a picture of you taking a picture of the logos of all the things that was on the board, and the one
I wanted
thing,
someone to get a picture of the person taking the picture of me taking the picture.
One of the things that really stood out was you see the Foxify logo and that big fox, and you can pick that out amongst the crowd instantly. It's like
really
recognize. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so recognizable. It's a great job, for the team to do that.
Yeah. If you put most brands, and actually no offense, but walking around Consensus, which is a huge event, there's so much cookie cutter in this industry. There's 8 different market maker stands. There's you've got even legal and compliance, right? There's like 8 stands of people offering legal and compliance services. It's very hard to pick them out, very hard to remember the brands. But we wanted a brand where if that was on a NASCAR in amongst lots of other logos, it's really vivid and it really stands out. And people love animals, right? There's a very subliminal connection that we make to brands that have animals in it as well.
Yeah, there was a few things in the white paper that's really stuck out. One of them was kind of around the idea that you want to take the user experience of a central exchange across into the decentralized, which I can imagine is not an easy task to do for many reasons. Chains, obviously the transactions, the approval of the wallet, all that kind of stuff. How have you, at high level, you don't have to get into the specifics, but how have you managed to kind of embed them into what will be almost like a central exchange feel?
I think there's no playbook for it. I think what you really need is a fantastic team and fantastic developers, and we have honestly I couldn't say enough good things about our CTO. And, as an individual, when I met, having worked in I've worked in companies as big as 100 billion turnover around SaaS technology and systems, and he's hugely talented, and I would take him into any business globally. So it's having the right team that is super ambitious and has high degree of experience and professionalism. I think that's really the secret.
Just on the team, obviously you've got a great team on Foxify and also MDB. How did you go about kind of assembling the people? What was your how did you, let's say, cherry pick the people that you needed to obviously perform what you needed to do?
Yeah, I think look, at the end of the day, I think as a leader, what so it will be the unknown unknowns that kill you, right? The known unknowns, you know what you're trying to fix, whereas the unknown unknowns will always be the things that kill you. So I think it's really important that when you're team building is to find people that are passionate about what you're doing, they're really engaged, but they just know so much about things that you're in the dark on that are going to be important, and no one individual is going to know everything. So so we've been made sure that one thing that really stands out in our team versus most teams within the industry, if I'm honest, is the sheer level of experience across multiple disciplines. We just shared some information today. I mentioned around sort of social engagement statistics 2 months out from launch. That's because our CMO has run e-commerce businesses, has had time as an independent influencer herself in other settings, and that goes for all of the people. Actually, I think almost everybody in our team has run their own business at some point, and that's super valuable as well, because there's a different level of commitment. I would say within the industry, and I've worked in other industries that are heavily dominated, that are high risk and heavily dominated by sort of short-term money, and you do get it's at the extreme in crypto. It's very hard hiring. It's very hard hiring good people, and people spend very short amounts of time in jobs. So if you only ever spend 6 months at a time in a role, it's very difficult to prove that you can deliver. It's impossible to prove that you can deliver success over time if you don't spend any time in the job. So, so it's really interesting hiring within this space because it's super volatile.
I don't have the white paper in front of me, unfortunately, but there was a key term I picked out, and I thought I must ask him about that because it sounded quite good.
OptiTrade.
OptiTrade. Can you explain a bit about what that is?
Yeah, so OptiTrade is just encapsulates all of the functionality which delivers an optimal trading experience for a new user. I move from centralized to decentralized today. I go from having an account with my email address on it and being able to on ramp using a card to a world where it's asking me for tokens that I don't understand. I have to get onto a chain that I've never bridged onto. I've never used a bridge in my life. I don't know what seed phrases are. I know nothing about wallet security. And then I'm looking at all these apps that I've never heard of, trying to put cash into my account. It's very hard in understanding wallet addresses, and it's if you can, it's very hard to do. I think once you've been in the space for a while, but if you can remember back to that experience,
it was terrible.
It was head doing. It made you feel like an absolute idiot. Once you know. Whereas OptiTrade, you land on the platform, create an account with an email. I can on ramp using Google and Apple Pay. You're not on ramping onto Foxify, just to be clear. We don't. You're basically purchasing stables, and then you're able then you can go. It creates a wallet for you. The seed phrase will be in your email. We'll have your email address. We'll then start to educate users on Web3 security, what they can do with that. Education is a really big part of the platform. So we'll support those individuals that are in that space, because keeping your seed phrase in your email probably isn't the best idea for any sort of scale or long term. And then you can trade and you can off ramp as well, and your whole experience is just it just removes that barrier to entry, which we can't see once we've been in DeFi for a while. We can't see it anymore, but it's huge, and the numbers tell you it's huge.
One of the things I've always, like typical gambling sites, like I don't know, William Hill, Ladbrokes, whatever, all these kind of gambling sites. There's like a governing body, a regulatory governing body that kind of, makes sure that there's awareness campaigns about going too crazy in terms of like, take a break, have a cool off period. There's things that enable you to just cool off a little bit if you're going a bit crazy. Do you think there'll be something, and maybe you've got plans to introduce this yourself at some point, something within the tooling that will kind of understand when someone's maybe going a little bit too hot, revenge trading? Maybe do you plan in the future to incorporate something that can kind of at least notify users? And I'm not even sure how that's possible, but I'm sure there's ways in which you could probably look at how many trades they're doing. But having said that, it could be a bot. How do you tell a bot? It's not
very difficult. I think education is really important. What we'll do is provide an environment for people like you to come and talk about these things. One of the things that we did, I think we're probably the first project ever in DeFi as MDB to have a mindfulness and well-being coach on retainer, right? And obviously you're a big part of that as well. And so we've already got sort of a track record of making sure that we're thinking about people's own personal well-being. And we'll continue to do so. So we'll provide an environment that encourages education, support, guidance, and we'll also, explore, having actually the same sort of, mindfulness, well-being sessions within the auditorium within Foxify.
I think that's brilliant. I think we from the Royal MDB, let's just say, spearheaded these ideas, and eventually you see others adopting it. But it's that. The innovation side again, which always, again with yourself and Alice and the team, strikes me as you never rest on your laurels. You're always thinking of a lot of these things. And just on that kind of point, no doubt we're going to see probably much more explosions into this kind of decentralized kind of environment, moving from the centralized exchange, because I think it's still just a small, it's a sitting duck waiting to be expanded on. And so I know you're always thinking a lot longer in front, and you're not just someone who's thinking about the now. And so have you got any ideas on how you're going to try to kind of retain market share eventually once you kind of, you know, pierce that kind of balloon? Let's just say, have you got a plan that is looking to capitalize on market share?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, our growth ambitions are extremely aggressive. You know, the reason we're financing the business the way we are isn't because we want to, you know, sit on a treasury or anything like that. We want to be, and we've already demonstrated that, right? With obviously, you know, working with Tyson Fury, signing a global top 20 athlete 4 months before you launch your platform is, you know, a very, very aggressive statement. And you know, there'll be much more of that, and we'll be pushing super hard, and that's because we think our view is that this is completely untapped. That we are at the foot of the mountain in terms of decentralized trading and the opportunity that sits ahead of us. Now, where does that opportunity exist? I think it exists first in taking away people's biggest concern. Number two, making it very easy for people to use you, and then it becomes very sticky. Creating lots of social engagement, which means the message can sort of expand as well organically. And then you need to be able to scale what you offer very effectively. And the way, certainly on the options side as well, the way Foxify is designed is in a way where our expansion is really in our own hands. It's more of actually, rather than a technology question or a listings question, it's more about a marketing and an operations question. So as long as we can achieve our potential and continue to expand users on the platform, then we'll continue to blow. I'll give you an example, right? There would be nothing stopping us with all of this, you know, hype, which, you know, I feel like old school now because we've been in the industry for a little while. You know, we've seen it with Sheeb and Doge and all of those things, and you've got it with Pepe right now. Now, if Foxify was live right now, we would seriously consider listing Pepe, and we can. We would list Pepe. It's got huge volume. It's got huge exposure at the moment. It's hugely hyped, and we can do that with any token that has significant volume and a very engaged community. Then the power is in our hands, and then we can go beyond crypto long term. I think, you know, compliance permitting, it's important that you know, we want to build a Web3 giant that can be very broad. Like one of the things it doesn't mention in our white paper, we're exploring having the platform in 10 languages, for instance, so we can expand aggressively within crypto. We can expand very aggressively. I say not regionally because we're not specifically targeting regions, but it just makes it very inclusive. Let's call it that. And then obviously, you know, compliance permitting, then you have the opportunity to scale this model into commodities, stocks, forex, indexes, and the sky's the limit, and it's all Web3 and completely trustworthy.
That's really interesting, that, because I was watching something quite recently on Mr. Beast, randomly, you know, as a YouTuber, prolific, and one of the things he realized early on is that if he made his videos multilingual, you know, with voiceovers that can reach, you know, Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish and stuff like that, and it just went bananas. You know, he exponentially grew just by doing that one thing, and it's really just regurgitating his existing content. Just kind of a segue. One of the things I'm massively looking forward to, and the only reason is because I've always thought of options as complex, because you have all of these kind of Greek or Latin different fading of when the price is coming to
I always say options is probably like what it must sound like for someone that's listened to cricket for the first time. You know, we got the fielder's down in this mid wicket, and he's bowling googly, and it's like, what is going on?
But one of the things I think
options is probably underperforming trading apparatus in decentralized trading by a long way, actually.
But I think there's something that tells me that the way in which Foxify platform will show, the binary options trading will be really easy to understand. It's not going to be difficult. You're just going to
Super simple.
pick your coin of choice, pick the price and the time frame, and you're good to go. You lock in the trade, gets held in escrow.
Exactly.
After the outcome, either you win or you lose. I think the simplicity of that really, really will play to a much wider market who maybe think, I'm not getting involved with options, it's just too complex, there's too many things to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. And what our platform does, I'll step back slightly. I think speak to anybody. Now, I'm not a trader. Have I a couple of times played around with trading, and I sometimes won and always eventually lost, actually, because it's just not me. I don't have the patience for it, and or for that. I'm too focused on other things. But I think almost everybody that's ever traded has been accidentally liquidated.
yeah,
Right. And what I mean by that is
got the scars.
their inclination was correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Their inclination of what the asset was going to do over a period of time was right.
yeah,
But in the process, they got liquidated because they didn't really understand what was going on. Now, don't get me wrong, you use these platforms and they'll give you a little test, and people fudge their way through the test, and then off they go, and then they learn the hard way. And so one thing we want to do with Foxify is make sure we're educating people the right way, not just creating a dummy test, which is a compliance box ticking exercise.
Yeah.
We want to educate people so that they can be as safe as possible, and then we want to make the platform intuitive, and then offer an environment that doesn't always have to be all consuming. So if somebody has an inclination that they feel very strongly that Bitcoin is going to go down tomorrow, then they would be able to sell an option and create an option and set the rate. They could say, look, if Bitcoin goes up more than X% in the next 8 hours, I'll give anyone a 3x. That's how confident I am. Come and take my money, and they can fund that option. And obviously they'll either accumulate or lose liquidity to the other side of that option. They don't have to sit there watching a chart the whole time. It's very clear in terms of what the parameters are, and there's this accidental sort of liquidation goes away.
Maybe you can answer this. I don't know if you know the answer, but like one of the things you see a lot is when people are known to the fact that they're about to be liquidated, oftentimes a stop loss a few pips above your liquidation level can sometimes save you maybe up to 40%. You don't, from an exchange perspective, is it more beneficial for them to liquidate a position or to be stopped out? What's the kind of, you might not know the answer to this, but what's the kind of, because they obviously,
it's interesting.
They have to lose, they have to absorb the total amount of your liquidity so that they don't incur the fees effectively, or they don't go into whoever the liquidity provider is, they don't lose that money. So it's like, okay, well, you can put a stop loss just above, and that cost for the ability to loan that money, let's just say, you don't lose out on. And so a lot of traders will just be liquidated, and they don't think, we'll put a stop loss in just a few pips before, as long as the slippage isn't crazy, and the spread's okay. You've got to kind of work that out, but you can save yourself a lot of money. And something I only really started thinking about in the past few months maybe. But can you give any insight into from an exchange perspective, whether it's more beneficial to actually just liquidate someone's position versus just allowing it to put a stop loss?
Yeah, look, I think I'd be speculating, to be honest, but I think one of the things that I would say is that the risk of liquidation often encourages more collateral from a trader, and if that happens, then they get liquidated anyway. Then obviously, whoever's on the other side of that trade, usually the exchange, is in a good spot, right? So I don't know, just speculating, it could be in the interest of the exchange that they don't get liquidated and they put more collateral in and get liquidated later for a larger amount. But I'd be speculating. I think that's one of the difficult. That's one of the things that I don't like about the trading setup. I know it's on the individual, but I think that's one of the things that I'm not a great fan of when it comes to sort of leverage trading, because I think a large proportion of people's losses comes from trying to save a position that's already probably lost.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, you get a few scars before you actually, come to that realization. Let's just say. I've really enjoyed this, by the way. I've only got a couple of more questions for you, because I know your time is tight. And by the way, for you, as busy as you are, you still find the time to take, you still find the time to be able to do these things, which I think is, it's class. So, thank you for doing this. But last couple of questions. So from you, I know you're not a trader, Danny, but if you had one bit of wisdom or advice to young budding traders who are starting the game early and they want to get into trading, what pearls of wisdom would you share with a new trader?
Educate yourself, number one, first and foremost. I think, and this is from the outside looking in, because I'm certainly not an experienced trader by any stretch, but I would say that if it feels more like fun than a chore, then maybe it's not a healthy place. And if you're getting butterflies, then it's probably not a healthy place. Maybe there's too much on it. And it's I've learned a lot from other good traders. Little things like little checks like you should spend more time out of the trade planning the trade than you spend in a trade, for instance. And I know traders that have been in trades for months. So it's I think I'm not an expert in the field, but I think it's really important that people educate themselves and they manage their emotions really carefully. I think that's super important.
Very much sage advice. Is there anything I've not asked you that you might want to just kind of have a chat about? If not, we can kind of wrap up here, because I think it's, for me, I wanted to give a bit of an overview for people who are new to Foxify and MDB, but also kind of ask a couple of more poignant questions and get a better sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anybody who's got sort of any experience of dealing with us as a team knows that we always put our clients first, and we'll continue to do so. So I appreciate people listening to me rabble on, and we want to do a bit of good in the space and kind of change the game completely. And I hope you whether you're a trader or whether you're a liquidity provider, we want to create an environment that's best for people in their own sweet spot, and we hope you can come on the journey with us.
This was definitely fun and not a chore. I'll put all the links to Foxify and MDB in the description. Danny, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I will let you go, my friend.
Brilliant. Great stuff. Take care, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, Danny.